Welcome to a freezing day, folks, and we're catching fish. It's a beautiful day for a bit of waggler fishing. I love my feeder fishing. I love chucking a bomb at this time of year, but when you've got a flat, calm day like it is today, hardly any tow on the water, a waggler just offers brilliant presentation. So, as you can see, we're catching a few fish now. Catching mainly F1s, but this might be a little carp. And what I want to do is, when we do eventually net this fish, I can talk you through the approach and the rig, because it's a little bit different to your standard waggler approach. And it's a scaled down version basically of my summer pellet waggler fishing. So I just really want to take my time, because we're not on heavy gear. You can probably see by the way I'm playing this fish, we're not on really strong tackle. Like I say, we've had a lot of F1s, but this is a nice little carp by the looks of it. Venue for today is Holly Farm. Great place to come if you want to get a few bites. Absolutely rammed full of fish. There we go. Oh. Look at that for a beautiful fish. Cracking carp, probably, I don't know, £3, something like that. But on a freezing cold winter's day, that is more than welcome. We're doing a feature today for angling time, so we'll just put him in the keep next. We're going to have a catch shot with him later on. And if we come around this side, I'll show you my rig, because this is the important part of the setup. Everything is scaled down. So on our reel, if we get in on there, we've got £3 line, really fine main line. That means that we've got less drag on the float as it goes through the rings. We've got less drag out in the water once we've cast out. We can sink the line quick. That means we can use lighter floats, which is massively important at any time of year, but mainly in the winter, where you want to create little disturbance and little resistance on the fish. Now, because we're using a very light main line, I'm doing something that my good mate Lee Kerry talked to me about, and he showed me, and I thought was a great idea. We use mini shock leaders a lot in our feeder fishing, and that's what I'm doing today. So I've got a 3-turn water knot there, a tiny little knot, and that's connecting about 1.5 meters of £8 line. So we've got £8 line there, and the reason we're using the £8 line, there's 2 reasons. Firstly, we get less tangles. That stiffer line means that everything kicks away from the flow. We get less tangles on the cast. It's more robust when I'm playing fish or I've got fish in my landing net. I'm not going to break off. But also, because I want to attach my float on the line with these gripper stops grip that £8 line, that thick £8 line, brilliantly. It means I just have to use 2 gripper stops, and they're not going to move during the session. You might have noticed that I've put my float directly on the main line. I like to have nothing in between my float and the main line. No snap links, swivels, or anything like that. I think if we can get that weight of that float close to the main line, as close to the main line as possible, everything's more compact, everything flies really straight. It flies like a dart. While we're here, we'll touch on the float. It's a midi fat boy. I use these for all my sort of like heavier, bigger bait style fishing. So anything where I'm using pellets or meat or sweet corn, I'll use this sort of float. It's a straight float. It's a really nice compact lead arrangement at the bottom, which means it flies brilliantly straight. But the fact that it's a straight float, we've got quite a thick bristle on there. It means I can dot it right down, and I can drag a bit of line on the bottom if I want to. Today, I'm dragging maybe 2 foot of line on the bottom to keep everything nice and still. I've got that really static presentation that a bomb or a feeder gives you, with the sensitivity of a float, so I can see all those little tiny dips. Now, let's move down the rig. We've got a single number 9 slot shot. That's a foot below the float. That just helps straighten everything out. It helps keep everything nice and straight, both on the casts and once the rig's in the water. We don't want our line blowing all over the place between the float and the hook bait. And obviously, if we didn't put a weight there, we could have a situation where the pellet is sitting on a bit of an arc. There's a big arc of line between the hook bait and the float. Hopefully I've described that well enough to you, but I know what I mean. Hopefully I've got that across to you. I want everything as straight as possible. We'll go down to the hook length. We've just looped to looped our hook length. That's 0.12. We've looped to looped it straight to that 8-pound line, and we've got 8 inches of 0.12. Down to the size 18, we've got our bait band there, and we've whipped our knotless knot a long way down the shank. We're keeping everything in line, so when that bait goes in the fish's mouth, the hook does too. What I don't want is just 2 or 3 whips on that hook length, on that hook, and the bait band kicking up the shank and it's sticking out at all funny angles. I want my bait to be as close to my hook as possible. Now, baits. We've got 2 baits today, and it's so simple. Like I say, we're fishing a scaled down pellet waggler approach. We're feeding really frugally, and that's reflected by how many pellets I've got in my pot. We've had a little bit of drizzle today. I don't want any of my bait getting wet and going soft. So just as and when I need it, I'm just getting a few pellets out, putting them in the pot. Like I say, it's a freezing cold day. I also want to regulate myself. I know if I filled this pot to the brim, I'd be feeding all those pellets. So by just putting a few in there, I can pick out just 2 at a time. That's all we're talking. Put it in my little catapult pouch, and I can catapult them out really accurately to my swim. So I know that I'm just controlling everything. Other bait that I've got with me, I've just got a pot of 4 mils. Now these are a really nice 4 mil. It's actually a batch of pellets that I found, and I just thought I've just got to get a few of those for hookers. A smaller bait, when you're feeding bigger baits, can quite often catch you more fish. I don't know what it is, but quite often we as humans think the bigger bait is going to stand out better and those fish are going to home in on that bait. But quite often it's that smaller bait which catches you more fish. There we go, scaled down pellet waggler fishing. Perfect for winter months, even when it's freezing cold like it is today. Hope there's a few little tips there for you to take out on your next trip to your local commercial. Until next time, folks, tight lines.